Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice little 5 game slate. Man, we've had some pretty crazy slates this week, but we end up with a 5 game slate for Saturday, so that's pretty interesting here. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It helps the channel a lot. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully everybody did well yesterday. We got some first place wins yesterday, so that's pretty awesome. Hopefully we can continue that today. We've had a really solid week, uh, and things really looking good. Today's slate is a little bit rougher. 5 games. There's not a lot of great options here. This is going to be a lower scoring slate, I think. None of the teams look like they're really going to jump off the page. If I look at the stacks like St. Louis, Arizona, and Seattle, they're top stacks, not teams that typically have that are super stackable. So it's a pretty rough slate. I mean, we got San Diego and Atlanta both being two of the lower, you know, stackable teams on this slate, which is pretty insane. So let's go ahead and look at our pitching though here. So we're gonna start with our GPP plays. We don't have any core plays on this one, but these top 3 guys, Dylan Case, Lopez, and Kirby, are the top 3 here. Now, Dylan for San Diego has some boom or bust potential lately. He's been a little bit inconsistent, and he's had some really rough games. He also has a tough matchup against Atlanta, which is a little bit annoying. But he has had some success against them in the past, and not this season. He does have some potential today. It's just high risk, high reward. He does have a decent K rate though for this slate, but nobody has a great K rate on this slate for these matchups. So he's a GPP play only. Now Lopez is facing his team in San Diego, so uh, I think that Lopez has been absolutely phenomenal all season long, though he has been a little bit inconsistent at times. He doesn't have a super low ceiling at least, or floor at least, and he does have a pretty good ceiling. He also has a decent K rate, though it has been a little bit inconsistent, being around 5 or 6 Ks most games. But he doesn't give up many earned runs, and as you can see, he's only given up a handful of home runs this season. San Diego really does not project well at all, so I do think I like him a little bit better than Case. And the other thing is that he's going to have a pretty low ownership today, which is somewhat surprising. So, but again, I tried to look at San Diego as a perspective, and I just didn't see much that I liked about them. So I really do like Lopez a lot today, and he does have some nice upside. That said, this could be the type of slate where no pitcher does particularly well, so do keep that in mind. Looking at George Kirby, though, for Seattle, he does have the best matchup of the top 3 pitchers on the slate. He's had 8 straight games over 15 fantasy points. He's got a good K rate in that stretch. He has the best matchup here, and although I do think he gave up a couple of runs, he definitely has the best potential for a solid day and somebody that probably won't screw you, at least, even if he doesn't do perfect, as he also has the best. He's tied with Dylan from San Diego as the best K rate on the slate. He will have pretty good ownership today, though, so to keep that in mind. So I do have 2 extreme GPP plays, and that's Eber Diaz for Arizona against Toronto. He really doesn't have a lot to go on here. He's a decent prospect, but he had 5 strikeouts in his first game against Atlanta, and he scored 18 fantasy points. His price came up as a result, so he's not a must play by any stretch of imagination. He is an extreme GPP play. He could definitely get blown up today. Kyle Gibson, the other option for St. Louis against the Cubs. Now, I do think the Cubs do project decently well today, so I don't really like Gibson a ton, but I do think he'll be pretty high ownership, and he does have some decent metrics for this matchup at least. Looking at a Hail Mary play, Woods Richardson for Minnesota, his price has come down a little bit more, and he definitely hits that value play here against the Giants. Now, I don't think he's a great play, and he doesn't have a great K rate, but he is a boomer bust play, and I think he can get a 12 to 17 fantasy point game today. So let's go ahead and get into our catchers here. So catching is pretty rough. It's pretty interesting today. It is pretty rough as there's really only 2 guys that have some good potential today, and that's one being Danny Jansen, who's just $3,800, and he really does help you pay up at other positions here. And he hit the home run yesterday. He had struggled for a few games, but I do like his upside in this matchup, and the metrics are just fantastic for him today. Kawar Ali has been absolutely insane lately for Seattle. I think in the last, he's had 3 of the last 4 games he's played. He's had home runs, and some of those he's had multiple home runs. He's been seeing the ball very well. He's just a little bit expensive today, but he has been absolutely phenomenal against the Angels this season, so he's a good contrarian play off of Jansen if you want to go that route. Jansen's far from a must play, but I do think that he does draw some good potential on this slate. Then we're going to look at The top ownership at this position would be Mitch Garver and Danny Jansen. At the low owned upside, Miguel Amaya, Sean Murphy, and Cal Raleigh there as well. So Raleigh is very good, and the only reason Jansen's in here as a core play is because of his price. But I would use either one of those guys 50-50 basically. So looking at first base, Vlad Jr. Does jump off the page as the best overall play at this position, just from a metrics perspective. This position is pretty weak when it comes to value, so it's going to be a position you probably want to pay up a little bit here. But Vladdy's been pretty good lately, and he's got a solid matchup here, so I do think he's a decent option. Christian Walker also draws fantastic metrics for this game. He's also been hitting the ball pretty inconsistent recently, but he does have that home run upside. Same kind of goes for Matt Olson. All three of these guys have been somewhat inconsistent lately, but they do have that nice home run potential on the slate. So the top ownership here will be Vlad Jr., Spencer Horwitz, Michael Busch, and Ty France. The low-owned upsides, Matt Olson and Jose Miranda. I really man, that position is pretty rough today. That doesn't change much for second, third, and shortstop, though. These positions are absolutely terrible on this particular slate. Looking at Ketel Marte as the top overall second baseman. Now, he's fairly expensive, but he is a little bit cheaper than he has been. So that does give him some potential here, but he is a little bit risky on the slate because his metrics are not fantastic today. Nico Horner is a good value play here, though he really doesn't have that home run upside, but he's been hitting the ball very well lately, so he's definitely worth a consideration from that perspective. The top ownership here, Ketel Marte, Spencer Horwitz, and Willie Castro. And the low-owned upsides, Brett Wisely, Nolan Gorman, and Ozzy Albies. Looking at third base, Chris Morel is the top overall play at this position, but my gosh, I don't like him all that much. He's kind of a boomer bust play. Nolan Arenado does actually project decent here, though he doesn't have as much home run upside as Morel does right now. So I do think he's a viable play, though, as a contrarian option. The top ownership will be Justin Turner and Arenado, and then the low-owned upsides will be Austin Riley, Manny Machado, and Chris Morel. Looking at shortstop, this position is a little bit better than the second and third base, but it's still pretty rough. Carlos Correa is the best play, and he does project very well, but he is overtly expensive today, as he's been really hitting the ball well this season. He's a little bit too expensive to really be a great play on the slate. Perdomo for Arizona does look somewhat decent today as a guy that can have a multi-hit game, and he's had some really good games lately, so he's definitely worth a look, and he's nice and cheap, but he doesn't have any home run upside here. J.P. Crawford, meanwhile, he's one of the more expensive shortstops, but he has hit the ball pretty well lately, and he's had some home run potential in some games. Now, he doesn't have the biggest home run upside, but he's definitely a guy that you could be a contrarian play at this position, and he's priced pretty fairly. The ownership here will be Correa, J.P. Crawford, Dansby Swanson, and Mason Wynn, and then low-owned upside guys, Kim from San Diego and Arcia from Atlanta. Looking at outfielders, Corbin Carroll, Julio Rodriguez, and Jock Peterson dump off the page as the top overall plays. Now, Julio has been absolutely phenomenal lately. I do like him a lot here. I really wanted to make all three of them a core play. You could kind of do it like that instead and take out, you could use Jansen as well if you wanted, but Rodriguez is a very solid play on the slate, and he's been phenomenal lately. He's just a little bit pricey at this point. Looking at Corbin Carroll, though, he has struggled all season long, but he's really improved the last week or so. I like his potential here, and he's finally starting to see the ball well, so he's definitely worth a look here, though he's priced up a little. Same with Jock Peterson. He's been inconsistent this season, but he does have home run metrics today, so he's definitely worth a look. As far as other options, there's not a ton that I love in this position. So Dalton Varsho, Alec Thomas, George Springer, Taylor Ward, Sia Suzuki, Ian Happ, Lars Nootbaar, and Michael Conforto are probably my top plays there. But my gosh, is it somewhat not a great slate for that. Looking at the top ownerships, Corbin Carroll, George Springer, Ian Happ, Julio Rodriguez, Byron Buxton, and Dalton Varsho. Also Jock Peterson, Lourdes Gurriel, Max Kepler, and Alec Burleson. The low-owned upside guys, Sia Suzuki, Adam Duvall, Marcel Ozuna, Jonathan Clace, Luke Raley, and Jared Kalinick. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments,